Welcome to Conversations. I'm Muqtedar, your host, and in today's conversation, I'm going to do two things. I'm going to make some opening remarks about India's elections, which started today on April 19th. Today was phase one. The voter turnout was reasonably good, it was 64%. And the second thing that I want to do is to talk to you about a poll that happened just before the elections. It is the CSDS pre-poll polling. It's a survey that has conducted. They spoke to thousands of people, I think over 10,000, if I'm not mistaken. It's called the CSDS Lok Niti 2024 pre-poll survey. And it argues as to basically shows how BJP has an edge, but they feel that the election is going to be much tighter than anticipated. So while BJP is probably going to win, Modi is going to win, but the election is not going to be as one-sided as the mainstream media makes it out to be. But before I get into this discussion, please subscribe to Conversation, like this video, press the bell icon, and don't forget to share the video with your friends and your socio-political network. So the first thing, the election started today. It was a hot day, and the voter turnout was 64%. They were voting, I think, for about 102 seats today. And but the remarkable thing is that, except for the state of Meghalaya, where there are two seats at stake, and the voter turnout was nearly 75%, 74.5%, and it is 4% more than. It's 3% more than the last election in 2019. So you can see that except in the state of Meghalaya, if you look at this chart that you're seeing, the voter turnout has been significantly lower all across the board, from Andaman and Nicobar Islands to West Bengal to Uttar Pradesh. Everywhere the drop is 6 to 7%, some places it's 5%, some places it's 8 and 9%. And if you look at Nagaland, the voter turnout is down by nearly 17%. So you could argue that the voter turnout seems to be, the voters are less enthusiastic about elections this time around. So I was listening to some experts, and some have argued that it is perhaps because the weather was too hot. It was a very hot day, but it was also a very hot day 5 years ago in 2019, and others have advanced the explanation that perhaps the reason why the voter turnout was higher in 2019 is because of the excitement that Balakot had generated. India's cross-border strikes in Pakistan had excited the people, and so they turned out in larger numbers than usual to vote in 2019. And what we are seeing now is normal politics. People are voting as they would otherwise vote. I do want to make a point about this. The elections, this whole phasing business is a bit complicated. I understand that that India's democracy is huge. The potential number of voters are over 920 million. Over 500 million voters are expected to vote, and so conducting the operations is a gigantic effort. And I did in a previous episode of Conversations interviewed Qureshi Sahab, who was the election commissioner, and he says that India is sending trends, and India is a trendsetter when it comes to conducting such gigantic elections in a very smooth fashion. But to have them over a month and a half is a bit too much. For example, in the United States, we have time zones, and so we start voting and end around 8 p.m. on the East Zone. But while it's 8 p.m. on the East Zone, it's still 5 p.m. in the West Zone. So people who are driving home, we don't have a holiday on election day, so people either vote during the lunch hour or after work. And so a lot of people who are driving home and are going to vote often tune into news radio, and they are told what the voter turnout was, and they even get to hear exit polls. And sometimes they make the decision that, oh, what's the point of voting? The states on the east have already determined the outcome, and so there is a kind of a voter suppression going on because of these time zones. I do understand that in India, the courts have said that exit polls will not release any information until the 2nd or 3rd of June. And the counting is all going to be done on the 4th of June. But nevertheless, already people are talking about how the contests are much, much closer in the state of Bihar, and how the voter turnout in the state of Rajasthan was just 57%. And as to how the two parties are going neck and neck, and so on and so forth. So while people are not giving exact numbers, people are just talking about, reporters are reporting from the ground in all of the states. So I think that there has to be some effort made to ensure that elections are conducted in 1 or 2 days, have it over a weekend, maybe a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and be done with it. But anyway, it is up to India to work on the logistics. Now, coming to the CSDS Lokniti 2024 pre-poll survey, this was conducted by the Center for the Study of Democratic Societies. They do it every year. And I don't know whether they did it in partnership with the newspaper Hindu or not, but the data was shared on the Hindu. And so the slides that you are seeing in this show are taken from the newspaper, the Hindu. The general finding of the CSDS Lokniti poll is that BJP has an edge. Modi has a clear advantage over Rahul Gandhi. So BJP is going to win, but it's not going to be that easy. It's going to be a much tougher fight. The elections are much closer, much tighter, you could say, or while the two parties are much closer than what you would gather from the mainstream media. So look at this. This is the first slide that I want to share. The question is, should the government get another chance? And if you look at the response, clearly a plurality of people, 44% in the year 2024, that is just 3 or 4 days before election, said, yes, the government should get another chance. And only 39% are saying, no, the government should not get. So basically, you have a 4-point advantage for people who feel that the Bharatiya Janata Party, Modi-led government should be given another chance. There are, of course, 17%. That's a pretty large number who did not respond. So if they vote for Modi, then Modi gets 61% of the vote. And if they vote against Modi, then Congress wins. So we don't know where that no responses are going to go, but it does appear, at least from those who have made up their mind, that Bharatiya Janata Party clearly has a 5 percentage point lead over its opponents. When people were asked who was their first choice for Prime Minister, the question exactly was, after the upcoming Lok Sabha elections, who would you prefer as the next Prime Minister of India? As you know, that more and more people are talking about India's election as a presidential form of election, where rather than pushing a party forward, an individual is being pushed forward. So this election is about Narendra Modi's guarantee. This is not about BJP's guarantee. So it's like voting in a presidential election. So anyway, when asked the question about who they would like to see as Prime Minister of the elections, 48%, just 2% less than half, said Narendra Modi. And then he has a huge, huge lead, a 21-point lead over Rahul Gandhi. It's 27%. And nobody else got more than 3%. Arvind Kejriwal, who's in prison at the moment, got only 3%. So basically, even though the Congress did not project Rahul Gandhi as the next Prime Minister, it does seem that at least in the mind of the people, this election is between Narendra Modi and Rahul Gandhi. And Narendra Modi is leading by 21 percentage points. That is a huge, huge margin. But this is the interesting point. For those of you who are wondering what the thumbnail was all about, why I have cast this election as religion versus economy, you can get that from the slide that I'm about to show you. When reporters were asked what was the most admired work of Narendra Modi's government, which is the one work of Narendra Modi's government that you have liked the most, that was the exact question, their answer, nearly a quarter, 1 out of 4 said Ayodhya's Ram Mandir. So this drive to re-elect Modi, to give the Modi's government a chance, is clearly influenced by Ram Mandir. It's the number one thing that he has done in 5 years that they like. most. To me, that was quite a stunning endorsement of Hindu nationalism. And I was also surprised to see that the next percentage of people who picked an item said that he did things for employment, because you will see the rest of the data and you'll realize why. So only 9% said they like what he did for employment. Only 8% said that they like the fact that he has done things to alleviate poverty, reduce poverty. Only 8% said they like the fact that he has raised India's international image. So none of the contributions like Hindutva, transportation, economic growth, good governance, just 2% of people feel that the best thing that Modi did was to provide good governance. Good governance usually means corruption-free government, which is efficient, delivers goods on time, and is inclusive and takes care of everybody. Only 2% think that is the best thing that he has done. So 25% of the population that answered this survey says Ram Mandir is the number one great thing that Modi has done. But when people were asked what is the least popular initiative of Modi's government, which is the work of Narendra Modi's government that you have disliked the most, what you dislike the most, the opposite, and you suddenly see that more people dislike his handling of inflation than they like the Ram Mandir. So while 23% people like the fact that he built the Ram Mandir, 24% people do not like the fact that he did not handle inflation well. 24% also say that the worst thing he did was to allow employment to increase. Now, this is really telling. This is where I see the divide as between religion and economy. Those who are going to vote for Modi are going to vote for cultural and religiously for Ram Mandir. And those who seem to be opposed to him, who probably will not vote for him, are those who are worried about inflation and increasing unemployment. And then, of course, poverty. So if you look at the two charts simultaneously, you will see Ram Mandir, inflation, employment, poverty, poverty. But there are a large number of people, 7% also, which is at the fourth place, who feels that he's not done a good job with dealing with corruptions and scams and so on. So this election clearly is about those who are happy with the Hindutva agenda and those who are unhappy with the state of the economy. When the top, this is for the NDA voters, when they were asked, what do you like the most? Now, this is not the general population. These are people who said that they are going to vote for either BJP or one of the allies of BJP. For them, 1/3, 33% for them, the best contribution of Narendra Modi was Ram Mandir. And of course, the next best thing is employment and India's international image, which are just 10 and 12%. So Ram Mandir is the thing. No wonder it was such a big show. I wanted to share this data, which I found very fascinating. So when people were asked to what extent they were satisfied, and they broke it into four: fully satisfied, somewhat dissatisfied, fully dissatisfied. So if you look at the two columns in the extremes of fully satisfied and fully dissatisfied, and then there are the moderates in the middle. So the people who are clearly most satisfied with the government's performance are upper caste Hindus. 34% are fully satisfied with Narendra Modi's government. And the people who are the most unhappy are clearly Muslims. 36% are fully dissatisfied. But if you combine the two columns, and then you can see that Hindu upper caste, 68% are either somewhat or fully satisfied with Narendra Modi's government, while 28% are either somewhat or fully dissatisfied. And if you go around, you will see that basically the Hindu upper caste, Hindu OBC, OBC in this case is 63% are more or less satisfied. Upper caste Hindus, 68% are more or less satisfied with him. But the more interesting part is that the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes, the percentage falls below 50%. So less than half of those who are scheduled caste and less than half of those who are Hindu scheduled tribes are not satisfied with him. But if you look at Muslims, I'm quite surprised by the number that I see on the somewhat satisfied and the fully satisfied. If you had asked me on a blind, I would have said maybe the people who are saying fully satisfied are about 5% and somewhat satisfied are maybe 10 to 15%. But here it's much higher. You can see that fully satisfied are 8%. And somewhat satisfied are 24%. So basically, about 1 out of 3 Muslims is satisfied somewhat with the Modi government. That's 24 plus 8, 32%. And clearly, you can see that 58%, that means roughly 2 out of 3 are more or less dissatisfied with the Modi government. And then if you look across class, and this is not about religion, if you look at about class, and then if you look at people who are poor, only 22% are fully satisfied, but still 55% people are satisfied who are poor, about 56% who are a little better off than the poor. The middle classes are all also just as happy, but the most happiest with Modi are the upper classes, the rich. So they are 62%. So basically, the Modi government is tending to upper caste Hindus who also belong to the upper classes. So the rich and the culturally upper caste and upper class people seem to be most happy with the Modi government. Those who are poor and in the lower castes, they are less happy with the government. So this is the final question that will kind of give you an idea of where the country was 3-4 days before the elections. So then it's a vote choice if elections were held today. So only 21% said they would vote for Congress and 13% said they would vote for Congress allies, which means that the vote for INDIA, India Alliance, is 34%, 1 out of 3. BJP, they said 40%, and BJP allies 46%. BJP, if I'm not mistaken, got about 37% of the vote in 2019. Here it's projected to get 40% of the vote, which means it will perform better than it did in 2019. But that doesn't mean that a higher voter share does not necessarily always translate into seat share. It doesn't necessarily mean they will get more seats, but we will see about that. It also depends on voter turnout, and as I told you that today the voter turnout was much lower than the last elections in 2019. And so there's nobody else which is close. BSP is 3%, left 2%. Others are 15%. That probably is DMK and Trinamool Congress from West Bengal. So it looks as if, at least from this survey, that the elections will be close. BJP has an advantage and an edge, but to me the more interesting thing is that this is also an election where it's like religion versus the economy. So let's continue to watch. I will comment as and when I can about the elections. I'm not on the ground there, so I'm more dependent on surveys and data taken by people who are on the ground in India. But I hope that you did find this. The CDC, CSDS, Center for the Study of, CSDS surveys on Hindu newspaper. You can see there are a few more questions that I did not address. And you can see the data, the raw data too. And you can also look at the methodology if you're curious. So I hope you found this interesting and thought-provoking. So please subscribe to Khanversations, like this video, press the bell icon, and don't forget to share this with others who may have not seen the survey or may not have seen an analysis of the survey. So go ahead. For those of you who voted today, great job. Those who will be voting in the future, do vote. Let the voter turnout be higher. The more engaged the citizens are, the better and stronger the democracy is. So until next time, I'm your host, Muqtedar Khan. Take care.